Hello, everybody, and welcome to another thrilling edition of the Boston New Technology Fireside Chat series. Today, we're talking with Jeff DeSocio, an old friend of Boston New Technology who has been with us pretty much from the beginning. And it's going to be a very special time that we spend today talking about the old days, the new ways, basically a lot of really exciting things happening, and we want to know what's going on and what's to come. And I'm joined here by my illustrious friend and co-director at Boston New Technology, Jason Krause, for the occasion. He, brought out all the stops, and
Excited. Yeah, really
yeah,
excited for this discussion.
exactly. We're very excited for the discussion, and we may have some folks joining us who will ask questions. But for those of you who are tuning into this later on YouTube, you can pop your comments in the chat too, and contact us with anything you want to talk about. But as we get underway, as always, I'm going to give it over to our guest first to provide a little bit of an intro, a little bit of a background, and then we'll get into the questions. So after you,
Great.
Jeff.
All right, thank you, Steve. Yeah, thanks for having me here today. I'm very excited to be partnering here with Boston New Technology. As you know, I've known the team for many years, and it's good to be doing this today. So anyone doesn't know me, so I am, I guess, a man of many hats. But overall, my career, I was in technology management, worked for many corporations as a director and VP of IT. And today I am a managing director at Broadreach Executive Search, helping our clients look for great talent and placing them. Also, I am the owner of AIMC Business Solutions, which is a marketing company, digital marketing company. We do websites as well as SEO and search engine for small businesses. And as everyone probably knows me more for in that realm, is the founder of Mass Professional Networking. So building a community of thousands of amazing professionals in Greater Boston and beyond. The pandemic kind of expanded that out worldwide. I'm a big advocate of the community here in Boston, the startup community. Pretty avid attendee of Venture Cafe in Cambridge, as well as many Boston New Tech events as we go into the new year. So I'm excited to be here, Steve. Thanks, Steve and Jason.
And we're super excited as well, brother. And before we get into it, I know we said we're going to get right to the questions, but I want to provide some key context for folks that are watching this. So, many years ago, I was working with my dad, and I was his marketing co-founder, which meant that my dad did all the hard work, and I went out and I met the people. So it was a lot of fun. Did a lot of networking, and you know, Jeff's mass professional networking was one of those catalytic moments for me where I met him, I met a lot of people in the area, and I started feeling much more confident and at ease in my networking. This was during 2017 or so, where, basically I was also getting started in the startup community. And it was always such a wonderful time. It's always such a wonderful time to go to these mass professional networking events and to meet like a wide variety of people, wide variety of business professionals. And it was not long after that, because I mean, Jeff, I think I've said this to you before, but I don't mind saying on air. I mean, you really positioned me well and gave me like the confidence that I needed to network effectively, such that when I started going to other events in the community, like when I went for an event at GSV Labs, I met Jason, which really was like the snowball effect of like things really starting to work out for me. So I wanted to start off by saying thank you. And then I think it leads into my first question pretty naturally, which is what inspired you as a business professional who obviously loves to network? Like, what inspired you to get started with all this, to be a somebody that helps others with networking and those networking skills?
So yeah, great question, Steve. So I'll give you a quick history. So I went to my first networking event back in 2007 at Northeastern. I'm a Northeastern University grad. Didn't even know what networking was. I thought it was something to do with gadgets. I was like, what's this network thing? And then, I went and it was absolutely blew my mind how like positive and entrepreneurial the attendees were. So, fast forward and went, a few years, I went to different events, and then I started my own group, Mass Professional Networking, in 2013. The whole basis to help others. I mean, bottom line, going to networking events and getting the experience over those few years. A lot of people ask me, why did you start the group? Did you start it for money? No, I didn't start it really. Yeah, of course you make a little bit here and there, but really to see the smiles on everyone's faces when they come to an event and they come back and tell me that I met like 8 to 10 great people. I'm following up with them. And even better, that shy person that comes to the event and I see them in the corner, not talking to anyone. And I take him, pat him on the back and say, let's go meet some people tonight. And then they become rock stars at the end of the event. And they're going to all different events. They're connectors themselves. That's my satisfaction in my events. I love seeing people become extroverted almost, to come and meet others and help others. Because that's really what it comes down to. If you go to an event with the intention of helping others, you're going to be successful yourself.
Yeah. Well, I was that person, Jeff.
Yeah.
I was that person, and you remember. I think it was actually if my memory serves me correctly, I think it was like the Hard Rock Cafe in Faneuil Hall or something like that. And I was
Yeah.
that. I always tell the story to people of, how I was the kid with the brown messenger bag and the notebook and the scally cap, looking down at my shoes. And then all of a sudden, here you are. And I mean, you and there are other people in the community too, including Jason, who really do walk the talk like that. Like, no, I really want to help people. I'm a giver. I mean, when I met Jason, and I learned about Startup Grind, for example, same ethos. There's like these very familiar ethos and philosophies, ethos and ecos, as it were. You both know I can't go more than 5 minutes without saying a pun. So Jason's probably thinking that's the first of many to come. So I think another interesting question to ask would be, so you started out, back in 2013. Obviously, I mean, would love to get your perspective on how you feel things have changed in the networking industry. And also, if you want to tackle a twofer here, how have things stayed the same? So what's the perspective on that?
I've seen a big change in the past year, actually. Of course, it depends on the economy. Today, there are a lot of folks out there that are new to networking because they have to be. They've lost their job or they're trying to start a business. They're out there, they're learning the kind of the trades of networking. What I've noticed, over the years is, I've noticed, I've met a lot of new faces, people come and go. We have a small group that have been there for 10 years plus, but really I've seen a lot of folks have become much more polished and more in a giving mode over the years, which has been nice to see. I know at the end of the day, everyone goes to the networking event to build a business, really. But in that sense, it's always about their approach. And I've seen the folks' approaches as they become seasoned networkers, become better, and they become more successful. That's one thing. And I think there was a drop off, I would say, in attendance around right before the pandemic, and then this has actually been our best year ever at Mass Professional Networking in terms of attendance and new attendees, sponsors, which I really like to thank our attendees for that. But I don't know if I answered your question, but it's been, I think it's a little bit different this year where there's a lot of new faces this year. I think more than any other year we've been doing this.
I've seen that. No, I've seen that even on social media. You're so right. Like I remember myself, Barbara, a few other people we have working at Boston New Technology on the social media, like on the Instagram side. Like Barbara was telling me, for example, our social strategist and digital channel navigator. Hey, Barbara. Like she was saying, Steve. Like I was looking at Jeff's Instagram stories, and I'm seeing packed room at the loft. Like everybody's looking like they're having fun. She's like, why can't we do that? Like we're going to be doing that, very soon on the 14th. But yeah, I mean, before I go, I want Jason to ask a question if he wants. I'm going to make a comment, which I think will really resonate with a lot of people. So I think everybody right now, more than ever, because we're kind of living in this new, I guess the pandemic has basically calmed down a little bit, thankfully, because of all the other stuff that's been happening, vaccines and etc. But I think the reason why you've stuck around, the reason why mass professional networking is still there, and all the things you try to do for the community is the one thing that hasn't changed. I mean, you spoke about the things that have changed on the ground, but the one thing that has stayed the same again is like the ethos. Like you want to help people network more effectively, but you also want to help people build their businesses, help people get off the ground. So I think that's the mainstay, right? And I think
Yeah.
something that a lot of other event organizations and community building groups can take their cues from. But yeah, with that, I'll pass it over to Jason.
Sure. No, I really like kind of everything you described on the landscape and kind of the mission and visions of this. And yeah, especially, the aspect of you're either hosting or you're just going to an event, and there's a bunch of groups of people talking, but maybe there's one or two people that aren't talking, and you go up to them and you know make sure they're included in the conversation, and kind of they become networkers by themselves by the end of the night. So yeah, what other like tips or strategies have you found worked well for people maybe coming out to their first networking event?
It's interesting. That's a great question. I just had an event last week, and there had to be at least 20 I could count first time networkers. And my first tip to anyone that's never been to a networking event is everyone's just as scared as you are to be at that event. And remember that they're there just like you are to meet people, follow up, and build something together. And the positivity at an event, no one's there to question you or anything about you. They're there to learn more about you yourself. I always say my other big tip if you never do an event, when you meet someone, start it with a question. Ask them a question. What brings you here is a classic question. What do you think of the weather today? It's just like light type stuff. What do you think of this venue? What do you think of Jeff? I don't know. But it's like you always start it off with a question. The worst thing to do, my tip, I say, don't do your sales pitch when you first meet somebody. Have a conversation, ask questions first, be positive at all times, and you'll be very successful at events.
Yeah, it's interesting because I remember you actually told me that about when it comes to the scared factor in terms of like, because when you are new, you are scared. I mean, you're putting yourself out there. You're very vulnerable in that moment in time. Like you're at a new event, a lot of friendly faces, but they're unfamiliar faces, and you're likely thinking to yourself, I mean, how do I make the best impression? Like when I met Jason, for example, we were at the, like I said, GSV labs. Like I was watching the startups pitch. I was enjoying all the amenities, but then I saw Jason, and I had that moment of hesitation. Jason doesn't know this, but I mean, he knows now. I had that moment of hesitation where it's like, do I go up to him? Do I talk to him? Like, what's going on? And I think a lot of people come into these, different types of professional social situations. And what I like about what you do and have always done over the years is if you see that happening, I mean, you're not intrusive about it, obviously, but you will guide people very seamlessly through a situation where it's like maybe you see an opportunity where somebody's trying to make a connection. And you're like, you know what? It's okay. That person, like you said, is just as apprehensive, just as unsure about how to make it. And then the other thing that you said before I ask you a question is the other thing that you said that I really liked was, the whole thing about using icebreakers in terms of not that really helps diffuse the situation in terms of that social awkwardness. Like, you don't have to just talk about business, and you shouldn't talk about business like as you taught me like the first time round. Like, you really have to try and build rapport with people. So, Jason and I work primarily in like the startup field, and I know that all startups start out as small businesses, which is why there's such a great relationship between our organizations. Because even if the businesses that you serve don't ever go like the startup route, so to speak, they ultimately have the same origination point.
Yeah.
So my question is, how does your networking tools, tips, and techniques like translate to startup founders? Because startup founders, right or wrong, they won't necessarily just see themselves as small business owners. They may see themselves as quite a different set of people. So how do you mentor them? How does that happen?
So one thing I admire startup founders. I mean, just wanted to say that anyone that has the ambition to invent a product or a service is I bow to them. I have to say that just and to be out there. I meet many at Venture Cafe almost every week when I go, and it's just great. One tip I do say to startup founders, and it's going to go back to my last tip: ask a question first. I'll give you a quick story. I met somebody at Venture about a month ago, and I guess what they do is they're building a new ski, for skiing. And they went off for about 10 minutes about their great ski. I don't ski. I never ski. So my point is, the first question a founder should ask is a question. Do you ski? Yes, I do ski. Great. Let me tell you about my product. All right. So always start with that. Ask, if you're a startup founder, talk to somebody about what you're doing. Ask them a pointed question about, that could lead to what they're doing or what have invented. And then, I would tail it off if there is not a match or if it's not a direct transaction. Who do you know that would be interested in this? And can you, if you don't mind, can you connect me to that person? Don't be afraid to ask that, but I wouldn't ask that first. That's almost like a follow-up question at the end.
Yeah, I mean, there really is sort of like a dynamic that has to take place within that like social intelligence realm where you're also paying attention to the way the other person is behaving towards you, which is again another thing that you and Jason have really helped to demonstrate to me over the years is, you know, active listening. Like Jason's extremely good at active listening. Like that way when you are in this dialogue with somebody, you don't just sort of like talk at them. You're talking to them and you're really getting to know them as another person so that even if your goal is business orientated, you're probably going to get some sort of favorable outcome if you listen and engage, like properly instead of like, and something else that I'm thinking about too, that I wonder what you think, and also Jason too, because I mean, Jason and I are working with founders all the time is if you are in a situation where you're not just feeling nervous because, say, it's your first time at an event or you've never been to this place, and it could be instead, maybe you're desperately trying to raise funds. Maybe you're desperately trying to acquire new customers, new partnerships. I mean, when somebody is feeling that pressure, in your opinion, how do great network organizers like help to diffuse that? Because I know it's not just that entertainment. I know it's not just the facilitation. There has to be like something else that you've been able to do to make sure that even people that are coming to a networking event who've had a really bad day, tough day, like they can, let their hair down and just relax sort of as a way also.
That was the best tip and the best tip at the end there. Just relax.
Yeah.
Everyone goes to an event, at the end of the day, to raise funds, whatever they need to do. But if you go in nervous, everyone's going to see you're nervous, right? And I don't know how they'll bid. So, but my big tip there is talk to the host of the event and even ask them. And I've been asked sometimes at my events, who should I meet tonight? And ask for an introduction right there. If that person's at the event, ask for an introduction. And I've seen a lot of success doing that where, let's say, Steve, I wanted to meet another co-founder to start up Boston New Technology. And there's Jason down at the other end of the room. I would do the introduction, say, Steve, here, meet Jason. I know you guys are both founders. You want to start up a new community here in Boston. Go to town. There you go. Start chatting. And I've done that many times. I've
I
actually
know you
probably
have.
a few
Yep.
times. Even at like last week's event, I had a couple, I had a girl that just needs a new, was looking for a new marketing opportunity. And there was a chief marketing officer at my event. So I introduced them to, so even if it's not the CMO is not going to get her a job, it's just to have a comfortable conversation with them about their career, because the chief marketing officer was probably in their shoes maybe 5-10 years ago. And that brings up a whole other point: is don't be afraid to ask people for advice, versus selling something. But if you're trying to raise funds and you're connected to somebody who's done it before, ask them for advice, even at an event, even if it's for 5 minutes, and then you have a follow-up right after that. Because that's what another thing about events that are great, and I love, a lot of the founder events that are doing it, is ask them about their story versus their product, because then you learn more about how they got to be where they are, versus a sales conversation again.
Yeah, Jason, I'd be interested in your take on this and any like back and forth because it's really fascinating here.
Yeah. No, I like especially the last thing you mentioned on that story component of it. I even the example, I mean, I think like you mentioned, it's always great to get to know the other person and ask some or questions that aren't even necessarily your pitch at the beginning. But when you do get to know them, a lot of times, especially like founders can struggle with kind of incorporating the personal side into their story. They talk a lot about what they're building and the product, they've made for a specific market, but not, that they're, if your ski example, they're an avid skier that's gone on 30 different mountains this year, and they have a huge network of other skiers that they like to travel with, and that's why they created it. That gives you a lot more insight than just, hey, I founded a ski company and I'm trying to find people to buy my product.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess yeah, story, the way your storytelling, like, how important, or how do you kind of encourage people to talk a little bit more about the story behind themselves and their business versus, just kind of leading with more of a sales pitch?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, it would, the know, like, and trust will accelerate with a story, right? Because if you tell the story and then all of a sudden the person you talk to could relate to it, they're gonna step up and say, all right, how can I help this person? Because I like their story. I like how they became where their journey to where they are today. They admire that, and I have a list of people in the Boston area that I just definitely I look up to and just amazed by their stories. If they ever wanted to, if they ever reached out to me, say, Jeff, can I help? I need help with XYZ. Of course, you want to do that, because that's another thing about the know, like, and trust. You want to know somebody, you want to like them, and then you want to trust them. Right. So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it goes back to something that one of our crew members at Prepare for PC always says, and just talked to him and Jason earlier this morning, and this brings up a good point of like wanting to create in people the capacity to trust, anticipate, and have like real joy in what it is that you're doing, which I think as a communications basic is what we all seek for. We all want people to trust us and anticipate what we're going to say next. In other words, to like, be super excited, but on the joy side too, like, oh my God, this is so amazing. I can't wait to see how I can support you. And I think based off of years of experience now in this trade, I think you're absolutely right, Jeff and Jason, in terms of like, it's all about, it sounds so simple, but it's so true. It's like the human element. Like, I think where most organizations that don't put people first falter is like they think to themselves, yeah, we got a plan, we got a process, we got a manual, we got all these things we're going to do and all these places and stuff. But those events fall flat because basically, there's no there's no factoring in the people part of it. And I guess my question for you, Jeff, would be, as you look ahead to, 2024, I mean, what kind of things do you want to do with mass professional networking that maybe you've been wanting to try for a while, or at least like what can people, look forward to as the months progress?
So we're going to kick off the year with our 11th year anniversary event in January, January
We'll be there for sure
23rd. I'm
with
looking
bells on.
forward to that. 11 years. What we're looking to do is help others, because I've actually been approached from a few folks about starting their own group, whether it's in a different domain, if it's you know let's say HR professionals or software developers or even ethnic groups. And what I like to start doing this, really kind of step up the coaching of others to start their own groups. Because I'm going to say, actually, I think Boston doesn't have enough groups. I'm going to be honest with you. There can be more out there, and even outside of Boston. But helping others start their own. Don't be shy to start your own group. It's not. It's the hardest part of starting a group is finding venues. I'll tell you straight up. Once you get a venue or a few groups of venues to have your events, the rest is really easy. And that's one thing I like to help others. If they ever were thinking of starting their own networking organization, let's work together on that. Because I think, the more groups out there, the better it is, the more networking opportunities there are, right, for others to go to. And because I love going to other people's events and promoting them.
I
That's
know
another.
that's pretty much how I. So that is, in case anybody's ever wondering, like that's how I found out about Chris and Boston New Technology. I mean, I went to your events, and I know at that point Boston New Tech had been around for a couple of, I think, only about 2 years, senior to you or so. But I mean, I started hearing about Boston New Technology at Mass Professional Networking. I also heard about Startup Boston Week at Mass Professional Networking. So again, it was my Mass Professional Networking was like my launch point. And so something that you said that really stuck with me, and I want to get Jason's take on this too, is you said, there you don't feel like there's enough groups. So for me, that is that's true in the sense that I feel like there are a lot of organizations in Boston that are all trying to do the same things, but it's all about the mentality too. It's all about the what are you trying to do? Why are you trying to do it? So I do think there need to be more groups like Mass Professional Networking that have like the give first mentality. You have a lot of companies that are basically trying to do stuff, and all the power to them. It's not a judgment call. It's just a statement of fact. Like they're all trying to do something. But I mean, Jason, how do you feel about that in terms of like? I know you're very collaborative, like Jeff and I too. Like, do you also think there's like, an opportunity for us to continue supporting, like, for example, grassroots networking groups, kind of like what we're doing with, Puck, for instance, and Jack Roosevelt, for example?
Yeah, I think there's a need for more of the specialization. So that's what we've found is like there's a lot of, or there's community events we host for, all tech entrepreneurs or the broader startup ecosystem. But then we've also started going into more niche events where, and even, some are pretty broad too, but like we did a consumer tech event. We have a life science showcase series. We have, when we focused on like med tech and other aspects to robotics and AI focused events too. So, I think within some of the categories you mentioned too, like there's the broader professional networks, but then there's also you can fit under a subcategory and even like find that core group of people you want to work with and interact with and learn from at some of these specialized either events or groups as well. So yeah, I think there's both a place for you want to do a little bit broader networking, maybe learn from some bigger speakers and see kind of come out to the larger events, and then you just want, some of those core groups where you can meet five people you're really gonna, that are gonna be like some of your closest contacts, and make friends with that like core audience and group in a smaller event as well.
So, Jason, you brought up some great domains that Boston New Tech is getting involved with. I mean, probably 5 to 8 of the hottest domains to be in today. And that's another point I want to bring up about going to events. Go to an event to learn. Go out there. What's some of my nugget? What's going to be like when I leave that event? What's going to be what did I learn today at an event? So, if you have that approach, also, helping others, what am I going to learn today, and how am I going to follow up that person I learned from, is a great way to kind of build those professional relationships.
I got that experience when I was going to like mass professional networking back in the early days, and there was talk going around about like CIC, General Assembly, like you take all of your other organizations that put on a lot of like educational events, and I always like really, as the younger generation say, I always like vibed with like that sort of core message, because I mean, when I started going to events at General Assembly, for example, and I feel so bad that their campus actually shut down here in Boston, because it was really special. I mean, I learned about, and all this, by the way, for everybody who's listening, all this for free. They did all this for free. I learned about data science, product management. I learned about marketing, sales. And the great thing was there was this kind of a coalition that was built back in those times between, again, Mass Professional Networking, Venture Fizz, Boston New Technology, General Assembly, and it seemed like almost every night, except for the weekends, and even sometimes on the weekends, there was like something that you could go to. Now, I have heard tell that like that's coming back. I wonder, question for the both of you, whoever wants to go first, like, what do you think that we have gotten that old spirit back? And even if we haven't, do you think there's something new and exciting to look forward to in terms of the networking spirit?
Jason, you can go first if you want.
Sure. Yeah, I think there's a few pieces. There's it was true. Like several years ago, you could, any night of the week, there's 5 different startup events or networking events going on. There's still a good most of the week now, especially like Tuesday to Thursday, seems like there's pretty active startup event and networking event scenes around the city. Again, it seems to be kind of the organizations, like some of the organizations powered through, and it's the same groups, and others didn't make it, and you're seeing the groups people really love joining, and want to continue joining, and had that strong like brand presence, sticking around, and also some new groups popping up that are things people were maybe missing or not seeing in other events and communities. So I think people are eager to get back out, and if they haven't been actively networking recently, like whenever we have somebody come out to an event and they haven't really been that active in a while, like they're always kind of refreshed and eager to go back to their next networking event. And I think it's just kind of getting out there and experiencing it, and then figuring out if you're going to go to maybe 5 different groups, check them all out, see which ones you want to go to month over month, and which ones kind of want to stop in if there's something really specific that you're looking for, and figure out what works for you.
That's great points. Yeah, I think definitely the spirit is back. There's no doubt. The hunger to go to events. Like I said, our numbers at Mass Professional Networking this year, probably one of the better years we've had. I think everyone feels comfortable being in public, and I feel like Boston's back. It's definitely this year, especially. We had a little blip there. I think everybody was taking off to like Florida and all these other places, and now they're all moving back. And it's interesting. I met probably a half dozen people in my events that lived in Florida and moved back to Boston. And I was thinking, are you crazy? It's cold here. They're like, I like cold. And they love the community here. I met, this year has been really interesting. I met entrepreneurs from Norway, Belgium, South Africa, different events. They're my event, and they're coming back to Boston. There's something about Boston. It's a melting pot. It's the birthplace of knowledge. I love you're in Kendall Square, and you get that globe there, and I always take a picture of it because we're the epicenter. So I think the spirit is back. What's missing, and I know Steve, I know you mentioned about General Assembly, and I just realized that they did close the Boston office, but there was a lot of educational events out there, and I always like to mix educational events with true networking events when I look at my week, because usually I'm not. I think of my wife, it's like she doesn't see me till the weekend a lot of times because I'm always at events Monday through Thursday. But that's one thing that we, if we were looking into the new year, is hoping to see a little bit more of these educational events like General Assembly had. Mass Innovation has a few, but just to see that come back would be nice.
That is coming back in the sense that one of the biggest priorities for us at Boston New Technology is, well, we basically seen the same thing, which is why I brought it up with General Assembly, because I mean that was just so special and so magical, and we have the ability to bring that back, not just because we have a lot of expertise, but because we have people like you who are also really good at at teaching people in a way where the teaching is fun, it's engaging, it's
Okay.
so you know in the new year, what Boston New Technology wants to do is, as we plan out our content calendar, we're going to have, give the people what they want. They love the startup pitch nights. They love that. We're going to, bring those back. But we're also going to complement the calendar with populate the calendar with like a lot of, workshops, a lot of, they're not really going to be traditional panels in the sense that like there'll be conversations, but they'll be extremely interactive. So like you will have people talking like how we're talking right now, but it will be an active encouragement to like, look, join in. Sort of like when we're going to be doing like, for example, reverse pitches where, investors come in and they talk about their fund, they talk about what they invest in, what they look for. And the understanding is, of course, you're going to have so many founders who are like, well, but what about this? Or what about that? And if it's done in a structured way, and if you do that across all of tech, so if you have something about generative AI, you have something about data science, something about, any other kind of new technology. I mean, I'll end by saying this before I put it back over to Jason in case he has any more questions. Like at the end of the day, Jeff, when we look at your name, we see mass professional networking, which means that there's professional networking taking place all over like the beautiful Bay State, all over like, New England too, to some extent. And it's very clear. You have a very clear brand identity. My challenge now as the co-director of Boston New Technology is to not only live up to Chris's legacy, but also to really put the emphasis on one thing only, which is this is Boston New Technology. Like we love new technology. We love the community, but we also love new technology. So we want to showcase that. Yeah, and with that, I'll put it over to Jason.
Oh, I'm just excited. I think, yeah, I'm excited to share this with our network that's going to be viewing this on both YouTube, and then we also now have a resources section here on Ecos as well. But yeah, even more than that is like continuing to work with you and your brand and network, and be able to help all of our communities really come together and get the best experiences, and highlight a lot of the things you mentioned here, where they can continue to learn from people, they can find and meet the right people that they've been looking for, or have that person introduce somebody else that can help help you find what you're looking for too, and kind of builds not just a network but like relationships with great people in this supportive, really supportive community we have.
So Jeff, before we close it out, I want to do a couple of things. I'm going to make you smile. Thank you for all of the pizza over the years. Myself and I'd say about maybe 75 to 80% of the early stage startup community, we lived on your food that you provided us with. Whenever we went to all those events, man, we were hungry and we always looked. Same for Jason too, with all
Yeah.
the area from for startup Ryan. I mean, we just had a ball, and I was speaking to a bunch of people about that too the other day. But the way we do things before we close out our fireside chats is I want you, if you're comfortable, I want you to ask Jason and I anything you want, like you got a question too, and then I want you to take us out, and then we'll conclude the chat from there, buddy.
Okay. Well, one thing I'm looking forward to is your startup pitches. I used to love those. To think about, it's almost like the Shark Tank for the technology community. So I am looking forward to it. As far as questions, I'll put you guys on the spot a little bit. What can I do differently? What are you looking for? Because I'm always looking to learn from others, and if there's something I could do to help the community a little bit better, or if it's sharing knowledge, that's the thing. I mean, I know I'm learning every day. I go to an event and I learn something. So if there's something there that you like to see going into 2024, definitely let me know.
Okay, so I'm gonna have Jason go in a minute, but I'm also gonna make what are Melise Doral and Buka from Ecos happy when I say this. So I would like to see more of you on Ecos. So we'll love to see mass professional networking, experimenting with new kinds of event-based technologies like here on Ecos, where I mean, I know there's such a strong and appreciable like in-person community, but like Jason was mentioning with like the resources and stuff, it's amazing like what you can do when it comes to even using a platform like this where, even if you're just doing primarily like in-person events, you can set all those up and then you can use tools. So I would say, come into the mad scientist lab with me every once in a while and let's do things on Ecos. But yeah, Jason.
No, I think that's great. Yeah, I think part of this is we all have like things that have been working well that we're going to keep going, but then new things we want to experiment, and some of those experiments we can do together and help each other out, like figuring out what's next and what should be improved or included upon. Yeah, I really like that.
All right, Jeff, you got the last word before we conclude the recording.
Well, I'd like to thank Jason and Steve for taking the time to chat with me today. Just as all the things I do, to help others, and my businesses, my job, my networking event. I always encourage folks to reach out. Nothing like human interaction. I know it's been a tough 3 years out there, with the pandemic and all, but to kind of boost yourself into that positive eco space, reach out to everybody, reach out to people that you've connected to over the years. We're in the holiday season right now. This is a great time to say happy holidays. How are you doing going into 2024? How can we work together? It's like it's the new beginning, right? And let's keep those New Year's resolutions going right through the summer next year too. And kind of build the community out there. So thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. It's always a pleasure connecting with you, Paisan. I'm going to end the recording now. Everybody, I hope you have a great, wherever you may be listening to this, hope everybody has a good time, and we'll catch you next time.